public field hearing in Wilmington, Delaware at Delaware Technical and Community College. At today's field hearing, you will hear from Director Richard Cordray and a panel of distinguished experts who will discuss the Bureau's efforts to create comprehensive consumer protections for prepaid financial products. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB, is an independent federal agency whose mission is to help consumer finance markets work by making rules more effective, by consistently and fairly enforcing those rules, and by empowering consumers to take control over their economic lives. My name is Dixta Martinez. I'm the Associate Director for External Affairs at the CFPB. Our audience today includes public officials, community leaders, advocates, industry representatives, and of course, consumers. We are especially pleased to have in the audience Delaware State Representative Gerald Brady. We also have with us congressional staff from the Office of the U.S. Representative for Delaware, John Carney. We're delighted that you're here today. Let me spend just a few minutes telling you about what you can expect at today's field hearing. First, you'll hear from CFPB Director Cordray, who will provide remarks about the Bureau's notice for proposed rulemaking for prepaid financial products. Then, Meredith Fuchs, the CFPB's General Counsel, will lead a discussion that includes a panel of experts on the subject. Following the panel discussion, there will be an opportunity to hear from the public. Today's field hearing is being live streamed at consumerfinance.gov, and you can follow CFPB on Facebook and Twitter. So let's get started. I'm now very pleased to introduce Richard Cordray. Prior to his current role as the CFPB's first director, he led the CFPB's Enforcement Office. Before that, he served on the front lines of consumer protection as Ohio's Attorney General. In this role, he recovered more than $2 billion for Ohio's retirees, investors, and business owners, and took major steps to help protect its consumers from fraudulent foreclosures and financial predators. Before serving as Attorney General, he also served as an Ohio State Representative, Ohio Treasurer, and Franklin County Treasurer. Director Cordray.
Thank you, Zixta. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's our pleasure to be here in what I learned in school is known as the first state. At the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we try to get out and talk with consumers on a regular basis across the country. Today, we're here in Delaware to discuss a market that has seen rapid growth in recent years, which is the market for prepaid cards and other prepaid products. Prepaid products are relatively new, and they're growing exponentially. Their most tangible form is the prepaid card product used to store funds and carry out transactions. The most common format of the card product is known as the General Purpose Reloadable, or GPR card for short. Consumers can load money onto GPR cards and use them for everyday purchases, just like they would use a bank account with a debit card. Consumers can purchase the cards in any number of stores or online, which makes them easily accessible to a wide range of people. Some prefer to use prepaid cards for online shopping or bill payment. Others may receive their wages, benefits, or other disbursements on a prepaid card. Still others turn to prepaid cards as a budgeting tool, as is true, for example, of some parents who send their children off to college with a prepaid card that can be used to cover expenses. The number of all prepaid card transactions is growing rapidly, jumping from 1.3 billion in 2009 to 3.3 billion in 2013, an increase of more than 150% in only 4 years. Prepaid products, however, are more than just cards. As the prepaid card market has grown, so has the use of mobile or electronic prepaid accounts. Products like PayPal or Google Wallet can be loaded with and store funds from the consumer or from third parties, and they can also be used for a wide range of transactions without reliance on a card. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation reports that prepaid card users are disproportionately unbanked and underbanked households. Unbanked consumers, of course, do not have any kind of bank account. Underbanked consumers typically have a bank account, but they also use non-bank products to meet some of their financial needs. These consumers either have to or choose to operate outside of the traditional brick-and-mortar banking system. More than 1 out of every 5 unbanked consumers has used a prepaid card, and this number is growing. Many of these prepaid consumers are living paycheck to paycheck and are engaged in a constant battle to make ends meet. They're some of the most economically vulnerable among us, and most of them have no idea that the prepaid cards they choose to purchase are largely unregulated at the federal level and carry few, if any, protections under federal consumer financial law, at least up to now. Technology and innovation can be powerful forces to improve human life. They can create new products like prepaid accounts that could serve the needs of consumers who are left out or opt out of the banking system. In growing numbers, people are finding that these products are helping to meet their needs, which is a good thing. But with this expanded access to financial services, it's also crucial that consumers have strong protections under the law. Our goal as a financial regulator is to implement rules of the road that protect consumers across different products and services, both in today's marketplace and in the markets of the future. Today, we're proposing a new rule to bring strong consumer protections to the prepaid market. Consumers need and deserve to be able to use sustainable products whose costs and risks are clear up front and where their money is protected. The proposed rule covers prepaid cards as well as mobile and electronic prepaid accounts that can store funds. In addition to general-purpose reloadable prepaid cards, our rule would also apply to prepaid cards that are used to distribute payroll wages, certain government benefits, child support payments, and government benefits that are not needs tested, such as unemployment insurance and public pensions. Under our proposal, consumers would have some new protections if their prepaid card is lost or stolen. The new disclosures we're proposing for prepaid accounts would give consumers clear information about the costs and risks before they agree to open an account. And if they choose to connect a credit product to their prepaid account, they would receive the same protections that credit card consumers have. As described more fully below, the proposed rule will help the prepaid market work better, both for consumers and for responsible providers. So, a little more detail. The new prepaid account protections we're proposing today are important because they fill key gaps for consumers. People use prepaid accounts as a convenient way to store and access their funds, and many consumers see them as effective alternatives to checking accounts. But these products are still fairly new, and most have not yet been brought within the coverage of federal consumer financial laws. By bringing prepaid accounts under the Electronic Fund Transfer Act, we're proposing to give consumers the basic protections, including safety of the funds, that they've come to expect when they pull a debit card out of their wallet or shop online with it. All prepaid consumers would receive the same basic protections as long as they register the card with the institution that provided it. The first thing consumers should be able to count on is easy access to their account information. Unlike checking account customers, prepaid users typically do not automatically receive periodic statements. Under our proposal, financial institutions must either provide periodic statements or make account information easily accessible online and for free. We want consumers to be able to see their account balances and a history of their transactions and fees. This helps them keep track of their affairs and exert more control over their financial decisions. Second, our proposed rule would require financial institutions to work with consumers who encounter errors with their account. Right now, if someone is double charged for a transaction or a merchant enters the incorrect amount, the consumer may not be guaranteed any way of fixing the problem. Under our proposed rule, institutions would be required to investigate errors on registered cards that consumers report to them and work to resolve those errors in a timely manner. Third, if consumers lose their card, our proposed rule would protect their funds. And if their card or their password is stolen, our rule would protect them against fraud. If consumers lose their card or find erroneous or fraudulent charges on their account, our rule would limit their responsibility for transactions they did not authorize and create a prompt method for them to get their money back. As long as consumers notify their financial institution in a timely manner about their lost card or an unauthorized charge on their prepaid account, they can limit their responsibility if any harm occurs. Clear and understandable disclosures are another important element in safeguarding consumers. The new protections would make sure that consumers have upfront information about prepaid accounts so they can shop for the best deal. This is part of our Know Before You Owe initiative to empower consumers to make informed choices about financial products. We've done similar projects on mortgage disclosures, student financial aid shopping sheets, and credit card agreements. We want to make sure that people know about the costs, risks, and terms of the deal before they sign up and begin to pay fees. Unfortunately, consumers often do not have this type of information about a prepaid card until after they've purchased it. Most cards list major fees on the exterior packaging, but the fee information is not in any way standardized, making it difficult for consumers to comparison shop among prepaid products. Further, some fees may be tucked away in the fine print inside the packaging or buried in some obscure place on the website. Thus, people may not know the fees that would be charged until after the prepaid card has been purchased or the prepaid account has been opened. But that is clearly insufficient. We want consumers to know about the costs and fees before they buy a prepaid product so that they can compare prices and terms to decide on the best deal to meet their particular needs. So we're proposing Know Before You Owe prepaid disclosures that would provide people with clear information up front. Our proposal includes a model form with easy-to-understand disclosures designed to help consumers. We also took care to validate these disclosures through consumer testing. This form would clearly and concisely highlight the key information about a prepaid account, such as common costs like the monthly fee, fee per purchase, ATM withdrawal cost, and the fee to reload cash onto the card. For those providers who use the model form, the information will be presented in the same format for easy comparison to allow more informed consumer shopping. In addition, under our proposal, consumers must be able to access a full set of the fees and related information before acquiring an account, purchasing a card, or receiving a card from an employer or most other sources. Our proposal requires companies to make their prepaid account agreements publicly available. Because consumers do not often see the full agreement until after they've purchased a prepaid card, today's proposal would make card issuers post their account agreements on their websites. Prepaid card issuers would also have to submit their agreements periodically to the Bureau for posting on a public website that we would maintain. We're determined to make it easier for consumers to be able to shop and compare the terms of different prepaid cards, and we're interested in having consumer groups assess these agreements and size up the positives and negatives for consumers to access that information as well. As with all of our Know Before You Owe efforts, we've been careful and deliberate in creating these model disclosures. Yet we recognize that these forms are only useful if they work for consumers. For that reason, we took pains to test these forms, and we welcome your thoughts on them and on the broader proposal. Through our collaboration, we will be better able to serve consumers in this important and growing market. Finally, some prepaid cards extend credit to consumers in connection with their prepaid account by allowing them to spend more money than they have deposited onto the card. This can pose certain risks. In light of this, we're also proposing strong new credit protections for these scenarios. Most prepaid cards do not currently have credit features, which makes sense because they're marketed as prepaid for a reason. Consumers often use these cards because they want to avoid credit features that can cause them to rack up fees and fall into debt. In fact, some of them have previously lost bank accounts for this very reason. Under the proposal we're issuing today, when a prepaid card issuer offers credit features in connection with a prepaid account, it would be treated the same as a credit card under the law. This approach would ensure that consumers who use credit on prepaid accounts will be just as protected as those who use credit cards. Many protections conferred on credit card holders stem from the Truth in Lending Act. Others stem from the Credit Card Accountability, Responsibility, and Disclosure Act of 2009, otherwise known as the CARD Act, which made sweeping changes in the credit card market to protect consumers. Our proposal would guarantee key credit card protections to prepaid consumers when the accounts offer credit features. We recognize this may make certain credit features impractical for prepaid cards, but these protections are very important in this context. First, like credit card issuers, prepaid companies would be required to make sure at the outset that the consumer has the ability to repay the debt before offering credit. They could not open a credit card account or increase a credit line on a card account unless the card issuer first assesses the consumer's ability to make the required payments under the terms of the account. Second, prepaid companies would be required to give consumers the same monthly credit statements that credit card holders now receive. This statement would detail their interest rate, any fees, what they borrowed, how much they owe, and other key information about repaying the debt. Third, prepaid companies like credit card issuers would be required to give consumers at least 21 days to repay their debt before they're charged a late fee. Late fees and other penalty fees must also be reasonable and proportional to the way in which the account terms were violated. Fourth, as with credit cards, the total fees for prepaid credit products during the first year would not be allowed to exceed 25% of the initial credit limit. Card issuers generally are prohibited from increasing the interest rate on an existing balance unless the cardholder has missed 2 consecutive payments. Card issuers may increase the interest rate prospectively on new purchases, but must generally give notice to the consumer 45 days in advance, during which time the consumer may cancel the credit feature. Our proposal also includes some important additional protections to ensure that the prepaid product is distinct from the credit product. It's critical that prepaid consumers fully understand the costs and risks of any credit product that is offered to them before they sign up. For this reason, our proposal requires a 30-day waiting period before prepaid companies can offer credit. Consumers should have the chance to decide whether the basic prepaid product is a good fit for them before they add any credit features. If prepaid consumers choose to sign up for a credit product, our proposal would keep their prepaid funds walled off from credit repayment. Issuers could not automatically demand and take repayment whenever a card is reloaded. Further, issuers could not sweep funds from the prepaid account to repay the credit unless the consumer has affirmatively authorized such a repayment plan, and they cannot take funds more frequently than once per calendar month. This keeps prepaid consumers in control of their funds. Certainly, it would be easier for financial institutions to extend credit without complying with these basic requirements. But these important safeguards are already required for credit cards, and we believe they should apply equally to credit features offered on prepaid cards and prepaid accounts. Fairness and transparency are important hallmarks of all consumer financial products and services. Today's proposal would help us achieve these goals for prepaid account customers. Our first ever comprehensive federal protections in this market would give people easy and free access to account information, require companies to investigate and resolve errors, limit consumer losses on lost cards or where funds are erroneously removed or stolen, and mandate adherence to credit card protections if the account offers credit features. Our new disclosures would further allow consumers to vote with their feet because they would be better informed with clear information about the costs and risks of different prepaid products up front. Just because consumers may not be able to afford or qualify for a bank account, or just because they do not want to be part of the brick-and-mortar banking system, this does not mean they deserve to be treated as second-class citizens. Like anyone else, they deserve to have a safe place to store their money and a practical means of carrying out financial transactions. And though many prepaid companies already have opted to offer some of these basic common-sense protections, as we welcomed, it is important to ensure they're not simply optional, but instead are cemented as the standard for the industry and enshrined in the law. Consumers deserve that from us. As Helen Keller once noted, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. We agree wholeheartedly. By working together, we can build a more fair and transparent marketplace for all consumers, whether they are banked, unbanked, or underbanked. And so we look forward to a vigorous discussion of our proposed prepaid rule here today, just as we look forward to the instructive comments that we expect to receive from the public in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cordray. At this time, I'd invite the panel to please take the stage. And while they are doing so, I'll briefly introduce the CFPB staff members who will participate in today's conversation, as well as our guest panelist. Meredith Fuchs, the CFPB's General Counsel, will facilitate today's panel discussion. She will be joined by the CFPB's Deputy Director and Associate Director for Supervision, Enforcement, and Fair Lending, Steve Antonakis, as well as Will Wade Gary, the CFPB's Assistant Director for the Office of Card Markets. Our guest panelists include Rashmi Rangan, Executive Director, Delaware Community Reinvestment Action Council, Susan Weinstock, Director of Consumer Banking, the Pew Charitable Trust, Lauren Saunders, Associate Director, National Consumer Law Center, Doug Bauer, Executive Director and President, Network Branded Prepaid Card Association, Cecilia Frew, Head of U.S. Prepaid Products with Visa, and Steve Street, Chairman, Green Dot Corporation. Meredith, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Zixta, for making all of those introductions. We have a panel of real experts here, so what we're gonna do today is each of our panelists is going to give some brief remarks, and then our group will ask some questions, to which they'll have the opportunity to respond, and then after that's done, we'll move to comments from the floor. Let me start us off, however, by framing what our discussion is here today. Prepaid products have been the subject of piecemeal federal consumer protection regulation to date, as the director talked about. Payroll cards have been regulated. There have been treasury rules applicable to other cards, but most other prepaid products were left out of this regulation. Today's CFPB announcement is the first formal proposal for comprehensive federal consumer protection rules for prepaid cards, and we're very proud to be doing that today. I say prepaid products, not cards, deliberately. In 2014, some prepaid products are not cards. Digital accounts, including mobile accounts, are potentially within the scope of our proposed rule if they can store funds. Some of these accounts have cards associated with them, but of course, that's not necessary for the proposed rule to apply. We put out an ANPR in 2012 to start the process of drafting this proposed rule. We received 220 comments in response to that advance notice of proposed rulemaking. We considered those comments carefully prior to this point. We've also conducted rigorous consumer testing, and we've done a fair bit of outreach with industry and consumer groups over the last 2 years. We have analyzed the consumer protection issues rigorously, and the result of all that work is the proposal that the Bureau issued today. As those of you know, if you're fast readers, this proposal covers a wide range of issues, including pre-acquisition disclosures, account information requirements, error resolution processes, liability limits for unauthorized transactions, credit provision, and agreement posting, all important consumer protections. Since we proposed our ANPR 2 years ago, these prepaid products have continued to grow in significance in our economy for both consumers and for the industry. They're now mainstream, as we talked about earlier. Next year, the total volume loaded onto general purpose reloadable products is expected to be around $100 billion. As I throw these questions open to our distinguished panelists and give them an opportunity to talk, I want to note that what we've issued today is not the rule, it's a proposal, a proposed rule. Today, we are starting the process of getting feedback from all of you on the rule, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. We'll then analyze that carefully, and we will move from the place we are now to issuing a final rule that takes into account the comments that we receive throughout this process. So thank you. So we're going to get started. I'm going to ask Susan Weinstock to get us going. Thank you.
Great. Well, good morning, and thank you all very much. Thank you, Director Cordray and the staff of the CFPB. There's been obviously a lot of work that has gone into these rules, and we greatly appreciate all of your efforts. Pew has been studying prepaid cards for a number of years, and we found that these cards really offer some really great potential for consumers, particularly for the unbanked and the underbanked, who can use these cards if they don't want to or can't get a checking account. Our research on these cards, however, show that they lack important consumer protections to make them an appropriate substitute for a checking account. And regulations are important as they will allow for a level playing field with only safe and transparent products. With today's proposal, the CFPB has taken important steps in making these cards a safe and viable option for consumers to use. Pew's research has led us to develop the following policy recommendations, many of which have been addressed by the CFPB in their new proposed rules. First, we have to commend you all. We're very pleased with the application of Reg E protections to cover checking accounts that will now cover prepaid cards as well as in your proposal. These are obviously important protections, which will make it easier for these two products to compete head-to-head for consumers. Second, we've seen that overdraft fees can cause checking account holders to become trapped in debt. In addition, our research shows most overdrafters don't seem to understand the opt-in system for debit card overdraft. The proposed rules include provisions requiring companies to ensure that the consumer has the ability to repay any credit offered and requires any offering of credit to be safe and fair. These are important provisions to eliminate the growth of abusive overdraft practices. And this is an important step in ensuring that credit is only offered in a responsible manner. We're pleased that the overdraft programs commonly offered with checking accounts that drive consumers actually to use prepaid cards will not be duplicated in this thriving product. In the final rule, the CFPB should clearly delineate what sort of marketing will be allowed with regard to consumers opting in to linking their prepaid funds and credit repayment. The rules need to ensure that a provider cannot mislead or pressure a consumer into opting in to link these two products. Unfortunately, the new disclosures that the CFPB has mandated will not do enough to eliminate the guesswork in deciding which prepaid card to purchase and use. While we are pleased that the CFPB is going to mandate that providers publish all long-form prepaid card disclosures on their own and on the CFPB's website, this proposal does not facilitate comparison shopping at the store, since all of the fees are not listed on the outside of the packaging. By requiring only some fees to be prominently disclosed, the proposed rule creates an incentive for card providers to disclose lower rates for the fees listed on the outside of the packaging that consumers can see and use to comparison shop, while revealing significant additional costs only inside the packaging or online that consumers can only examine after they've made purchase or when they have access to the internet. Also, this may not be helpful for those who don't have internet access or only have internet access on a mobile device, and it may be difficult for them to read the long form on a small phone screen. We're also concerned that the information on overdraft and credit may be hard for consumers to understand, since no context or further information is provided. Finally, GPR prepaid card funds need to be federally insured against all losses up to $250,000 as our checking account funds. Yet the proposed rule does not seem to address this issue other than through disclosure of whether funds are insured. These cards bear great similarity to checking accounts in their functionality, including allowing direct deposit of paychecks. Yet there's no way for a consumer to track whether the bank holding their prepaid funds is financially sound. Our research has shown that money transmitter licenses do not provide the protections afforded by FDIC and NCUA insurance. The CFPB has the regulatory authority to require prepaid card providers to ensure that funds loaded on these cards are federally insured, and we would like to see them do that. So let me conclude by saying we are so pleased that the CFPB has moved forward with the application of Reg E to prepaid cards and has fashioned a rule that will keep abusive overdraft fees off of this product, and these are very important provisions. We plan to work to ensure that the final rules will require FDIC insurance on prepaid card funds, and that disclosures include key fees, terms, and conditions on the outside of the packaging so that consumers can choose the card that works best for them. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Susan. Let's turn it over to Rashmi Rangan.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the consumers of financial products and services in the great state of Delaware, a warm welcome. Thank you for being here. And on a burgeoning, new, growing industry, prepaids are here to stay, unfortunately. And so the proposals are a good step forward. What I want to do today is I had to rewrite the speech, actually, after I read the proposals. So I said, let's talk about our experiences. So oftentimes, a very tiny segment of the prepaid consumer market goes into the prepaid product responsibly, knowing that we have to manage the money that we have responsibly, so they use the prepaid to curb overspending. However, a majority of our clients use the prepaid cards because they have been practically cornered into them. They are either unbanked, underbanked, never banked, or debanked. That is our consumers that use the prepaid products. They are often older Americans on fixed income, unemployed, employed and receive their paychecks on the payroll card or in cash, often very low wage worker, those that receive the earned income tax credit, the immigrants. The most vulnerable in our community are the ones that are using prepaid cards. So these days, we have also noticed that acceptance of direct deposit of a paycheck is increasingly becoming a condition of employment. The fees that we have seen from our consumers are for essential information such as what is the balance left on my card, to activate the card, to load on it, to transact with it, or using it as credit. Fees in one instance, a consumer that had loaded $200 a week on that card spent $40 that week in fees alone. This is highway robbery. In 5 years, this industry has grown and it will continue to grow. To the advocacy world, this growth comes as absolute no surprise. The financial crisis has left a much larger number of Delawareans even more vulnerable and needing this product. People are losing faith in the financial institutions. Not a month passes without a new revelation of abuses in this sector. There is distrust with the government itself. Despite that distrust, nearly 2,500 Delawareans used the CFPB's complaint process and filed complaints. In fact, our office, in addition to filing complaints, did pick up the phone, talk to somebody at CFPB, and resolved a very troubling servicing issue for a client of ours. For that, thank you so very much. People are concerned about their privacy, especially when they read about the frequency with which data breaches occur everywhere. Prepaid is a very profitable industry. Our banks are in it. In the Community Reinvestment Act world, we have seen what happens when banks do not meet the credit needs of their communities. Vultures and loan sharks step in the name of serving that need, often with capital from the banks that chose not to invest in the community in the first place. So this is the right step, right first step, and of course things will change and we will be watching. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Rashi. Let's move on to Lauren Saunders.
Thank you, Director Cordray and the rest of the staff at the CFPB for inviting me here to speak to you all today and for all of your work to protect consumers in the prepaid card market and in so many other important financial services markets. Prepaid cards are playing an increasingly important role in providing transaction accounts to consumers who have been shut out of bank accounts, have had trouble with overdraft fees, to banked consumers who are looking for a way to control spending, to employers and public agencies who are looking for a fast and safe way to provide payments to people who don't have direct deposit. Prepaid cards can be safer, more convenient, and cheaper than paying to cash a paper check or walking around with a lot of cash in your pocket. Many prepaid cards live up to their promise, but not all do, and we don't right now have a clear set of rules that provides uniform protections to consumers who use prepaid cards. Prepaid cards don't right now get the clear, uniform protections that bank account holders get if there are errors, fraud, or other problems with a lost card. Prepaid cards operate as bank account substitutes, and many are insured by the FDIC, but not all are, and funds can be at risk. The vast majority of prepaid cards are truly prepaid. 98% of the cards in the report that the CFPB just issued are in fact prepaid. But a few, especially cards sold by payday lenders, offer misnamed overdraft protection that lures people into overdrafting at the end of the month, hits them with overdraft fees, and then leaves them with a hole in their paycheck that leads them into overdrafting again at the end. These overdraft features can rack up hundreds of dollars a year in fees for people who can least afford to pay them. Basic account information can be hard to find and expensive for prepaid cards. Most do not automatically come with statements. For consumers who don't have computers, the cards can be a black hole. It can be difficult to find out the fees and charges that are coming out of the account. Basic functions like finding out your account balance or calling customer service can end up with a fee. For employees, a well-designed payroll card can be a useful option for receiving your pay, but too many employees are pushed into fee-laden cards and are not offered the clear choice that they have under the law to choose how to receive their pay. Finally, fees can be difficult to find out and compare, and consumers can't get clear pricing information to pick the right card for themselves. Now, I have not read the rule, but I believe that in all of these areas, the rule does make progress and will make prepaid cards safer for consumers and for employees. I know that in all of these areas, there are also going to be improvements that we will be urging in places where we think the rule should go farther and should be tightened up to avoid evasions. But overall, I think it's a strong rule, and it will be a win-win for both industry and consumers and employees who will have more confidence when they use prepaid and payroll cards. I should also note that banks should not use prepaid cards as an excuse not to offer safe and affordable checking accounts to consumers of modest means, and we have a lot of work to be done there. We don't want prepaid cards to be the place where people are shunted, but for many people they will be useful and they will be safer and more transparent after this rule. So I thank the CFPB for your work and for inviting me here today.
Thanks very much, Lauren. We're going to move into some perspectives from the prepaid card industry. So, Doug Bauer, why don't you get started?
Thank you. Director Cordray, thank you for the generous invitation to participate in today's field hearing. My name is Doug Bauer, and I am the Executive Director of the Network Branded Prepaid Card Association. NBPCA is the only trade association focused solely on the network branded prepaid card industry. And our unique membership represents the entire prepaid value chain. Network-branded prepaid cards are debit cards that carry the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover logo. NBPCA is excited to be part of this dialogue with the CFPB to help establish common-sense consumer protections that will reassure consumers about the safety and security of their funds while providing a level playing field for all industry players. We look forward to the opportunity to read and review the 870-page rule released this morning. Not that fast of a speed reader. General-purpose reloadable cards represent an increasingly popular financial services tool that provide nearly all of the benefits of a checking account, but avoids many of the drawbacks such as credit checks and high fees. As a result, it is no surprise that the prepaid card industry has experienced dramatic growth over the last 10 years. In fact, prepaid cards are gaining in popularity because they address an important consumer need, providing secure payments that are safer than cash. Prepaid cards have opened the door to the card-based financial system for many of the approximately 90 million Americans who are unbanked and underbanked. Many consumers in these groups have limited or no access to bank branches or ATMs in their neighborhoods. Moreover, many are simply not eligible for or do not have enough money for traditional banking services. Recently, we have observed prepaid card usage trending upward among Generation Y consumers. In fact, according to a recent study conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, the general purpose reloadable card is highest in persons age 18 to 48. In fact, 59% of those surveyed said that their prepaid card helped them manage their money better and spend less. This study also found that the cumulative monthly fees for general purpose reloadable card holders averaged between $5 and $6, which is less than the cost of many traditional banking accounts. In addition, our industry is focused on providing a safe payment alternative for all consumers. For example, a review of some of the largest reloadable card programs demonstrates that once a consumer submits their personal information to an issuer, the cardholder is fully protected against loss, theft, and unauthorized transaction. Finally, MBPCA has long supported efforts to develop a way to make general-purpose reloadable card fees clear and understandable. In fact, we have published our own leading practices for consumer disclosures on general-purpose reloadable cards. NBPCA and our members stand ready to work with the Bureau to develop meaningful prepaid card disclosures. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and experience of the more than 70 member companies of the MBPCA, and I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. We're going to move on to Cecilia Frew. Thank you.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Cecilia Frew, and I manage prepaid for the U.S. for Visa. Thank you to the CFPB for inviting Visa here to participate. As more people continue to choose the security, convenience, and reliability of prepaid cards, the proposed rulemaking is an important first step in the ongoing evolution of the prepaid category. First, let me take a minute to explain what Visa does. Visa is a global payment technology company. We connect consumers, businesses, financial institutions, and governments in more than 200 countries and territories to fast and reliable payments. We operate one of the world's most advanced processing networks, VisaNet, with fraud protection for consumers and assured payments for merchants. We do not issue cards, but rather we work with financial institutions and program managers to create a wide variety of products distributed through multiple channels to meet a broad set of consumer needs. Prepaid has evolved significantly over the last several years. What started out as a single-use, non-reloadable card really targeted to gift and rebate later evolved to products aimed at delivering government, healthcare, and corporate disbursements in a less expensive and more efficient way. Today, the category has evolved even further into general-purpose reloadable cards that any consumer can attain, regardless of their involvement in traditional brick-and-mortar financial services, their lack of credit history, or previous experiences in banking. This evolution has opened up a new solution for many consumers to manage their money. Consumers that were cashing a payroll check and using cash to pay bills now can have direct deposit directly onto the card, giving them access to their pay up to 2 days earlier, and in a more convenient way. Consumers now have more ways to pay their bills in real time by using their card without having to travel to merchants to pay their bills in cash. Today, the vast majority of utility providers accept cards. And finally, prepaid cards give a previously excluded segment of the population, a segment that was using cash entirely, access to participate in e-commerce and mobile solutions. Recently, we've seen an especially interesting evolution of the product. We have found that mainstream consumers are often using the product in unexpected ways, such as a companion card to their traditional checking account, where they would segregate funds in order to help them manage and control their spending. We see these consumers using prepaid in addition to checking, debit, and credit, not instead of them. We imagine a day when prepaid cards are one more tool in the wallet to help consumers manage their financial lives and build their financial future. These rules are one more step in that evolution, which will bring clarity to both consumers and the industry. Already today in market, the majority of Visa prepaid programs have already adopted the same consumer protections available on checking and debit cards today. In addition, we've seen prepaid become more consumer-friendly, with simplified fee structures and features and functionality that aid the consumer in the day-to-day management of their money. Finally, prepaid has been on the forefront of innovation, and we expect to see that continue. A good part of the financial services innovation is utilizing prepaid as its platform because it's easy to get up and running and to iterate services quickly. Innovators see prepaid as a way to deliver new products and services to consumers to meet unmet needs, and to redefine how banking is done. We are excited by the ongoing investments in the prepaid platform happening all across the financial services landscape. Visa is committed to opening up our network to enable these innovators and thus helping consumers to thrive. In conclusion, Visa constantly strives for better understanding the needs of our clients and cardholders, and in doing so, add product features that make Visa the best way to pay and be paid by everyone everywhere. Again, thank you for having me.
Thanks very much, Cecilia. And we're going to hear some opening remarks from our last panelist, Steve Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cordray and attendees at today's field hearing, my name is Steve Street, and I'm founder, chairman, and CEO of Green Dot Corporation, and founder and chairman of Green Dot Bank, a state-chartered Fed member commercial bank regulated by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the State of Utah Department of Financial Institutions. It's a little bit of a historical perspective. So 15 years ago, while working from my small bedroom at a folding table in the corner of the room, I came up with an invention called the iGen MasterCard. The idea was to create a so-called credit card for kids who wanted to buy stuff online without having to ask their parents to use their credit card. With that basic invention, my friend and I started a company and went to market. We sold our first iGen card at a Rite Aid store in Loudoun County, Virginia, on May 21st of 2001. Sales started to pick up, but we quickly learned that kids were not the ones buying the iGen card. In fact, our customers turned out to be low-income Americans who needed a MasterCard at that time, but couldn't get a traditional bank debit card or a credit card. So we knew we had a good product, but that kids were not the customer. So in true entrepreneurial fashion, we changed course, recalled all the iGen packaging off the shelf, and relaunched with a new product called the prepaid MasterCard. So why prepaid? I chose the word prepaid because my friends and neighbors all knew what a prepaid phone card was, and so I figured that naming this new product a prepaid MasterCard would help consumers more quickly understand how the card worked. You load cash at the register, you spend what you loaded, repeat. We couldn't afford customer research back then, but the name prepaid stuck, and that basic product created the prepaid debit card industry that is the subject of today's field hearing. Of course, 15 years ago, there was no CARD Act, no Dodd-Frank, no CFPB, in fact, and no specific prepaid regulations at all. Even consumer advocates hadn't yet become familiar with our little product. But even in those early days when we couldn't always make payroll for our company, and many thought we would fail, we pressed ahead with a strong belief that putting the customer first, and in our case, that customer is a single mom struggling to make ends meet, that truly loving and respecting that customer would bring Green Dot long-term success. I guess to borrow a phrase from a country song, Green Dot was pro-consumer before being pro-consumer was cool. And the customer has responded, blessing us over all those years with their ongoing loyalty and patronage, making Green Dot the biggest in the industry and allowing me to now have a bigger bedroom office. I'm so humbled and honored to be here today, not just to represent our company, but more importantly, to represent our customers. When a customer uses a prepaid card, any prepaid card, they deserve to be treated fairly and honestly. They deserve to have their money protected in the same way any bank account holder is protected, and they deserve to use a product that helps and does no harm. Today, the prepaid industry takes another step towards maturity and passes another milestone on its path to long-term sustainability and critical mass. I, as a person, and Green Dot as a company, fully support the CFPB's mission. A football game without rules and referees isn't a sport, it's a brawl. Like sports, to be successful, industry also needs rules and referees to ensure fairness, integrity, and safety for all participants. Director Cordray, on behalf of Green Dot, its retail distribution partners, our investors, our nearly 3,000 associates in the United States and around the world, and our many millions of customers who rely on our prepaid products every day, thank you for giving me the honor of sharing my thoughts on such a historic and important day for the prepaid debit card industry.
We also would like to note that, for the record, you displaying the best corporate branded necktie I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for talking about the evolution of this industry and really setting the stage for why we are here today and why CFPB has issued this proposed rule. I'm going to start the questions, and I'm going to start with Rashmi, if that's okay. We've heard so much now about the growth of and the evolution of the prepaid card industry, and you talked about why consumers in your community are almost forced to have to use prepaid cards. I'm curious if you could talk to us a little bit more about the issues that consumers in your community are facing when they use these kinds of products.
Thank you. For starters, consumers do not know what this product is all about. Most of them are moving into some kind of a systematic use of finances outside of cash. So the very fact that they're using this card for the very first time, unaware of the fees associated with them. I kind of always get reminded the very first time I saw a Mac machine when I came to the US and said, ooh, you spit a card in and money comes out, magic. And truly, I actually do get the fact that my consumers don't know this product at all, don't understand how much is there, so they tend to overdraw because they just don't know. They know there was a $100 deposit. I've used up $50, so there should be $50, but let me double check. They're being very smart about making sure to know that what's there, and they pick up the phone call, and suddenly only $30 is left. So I think the ignorance is one huge thing. And the concern really for us with this prepaid product is that the consumers have very few choices, or actually, like I said, they are cornered. They have no choices. So information, education is something we need to do, but the protections and glancing at the proposed rule, I feel comfortable with some of the protections, but the protections have to translate into informing my consumer, preparing them on how to read, comparison shop, and do the right thing by themselves.
Thanks, Rashmi. Doug, this one's for you. You talked a little bit about this in your remarks, but could you say a little more about the developments that you've seen in the prepaid market in recent years? How's the market grown? How's it changed?
Yeah, it's very interesting that we obviously see unprecedented growth, but we also see that the product has moved very mainstream. If you look at the average income for prepaid card holders back in 2011, it was about $45,000 a year. The most recent Fed study indicated that it was over $63,000 a year. That's a huge change that illustrates these products are really moving mainstream. A lot of the growth is being driven by federal payments, as you can, I think, are all aware. It's a much more efficient way to issue payments to consumers, but also we're seeing huge uptake, as I mentioned in my comments, by the Gen Xers. And we expect to see the industry continue to grow and prosper, and we like the competition that's in the marketplace now because we think it will continue to support very fair and competitive fees.
Great, thanks.
Okay, good morning. My name is Steve Antonikis. I serve as the Deputy Director of the Bureau and also the Associate Director for Supervision and Enforcement in Fair Lending. Let me add my thanks to the panel for taking the time for coming today, and also to the audience for participating in our field hearing as well. My first question is for Susan, and the question is, really, could you take a little bit of time and describe the benefits to consumers of a standardized disclosure regime across the prepaid market?
Sure. So when we did a survey of prepaid card users, and we released it earlier this year, we found that only 32% of consumers had actually compared terms before choosing a card. And they mostly selected a card without comparison shopping, or they used a card that was, a friend or a family member told them to use. And our market scan found a variety of disclosure methods that were not uniform, that were hard for consumers to understand, that they couldn't make those comparisons and pick the card that works best for them. We've done a number of focus groups in many different cities looking at disclosure, and we've developed our own disclosure box for prepaid cards. And we found that folks really like the idea of having this disclosure box that's available to them in the store pre-purchase and online. They wanted to use it to help them avoid unanticipated charges, to aid in the comparison shopping. It can be a useful reference tool if somebody has a question after the fact. They've bought the card. Wait, I don't remember this part of it. What did it say? I can go back and look at that disclosure and understand it. And it can eliminate the need to call customer service, with what we found is often comes with a fee. So that's helpful to consumers as well. And it's great that this includes this new rule is going to include uniform disclosures so consumers can make those apples-to-apples comparison. Because as I said, when we looked at the market and we looked at many, many cards across the industry, what we found is they're all different, and there's makes it very difficult for consumers to make those comparisons. A couple things that the box, I think, leaves out that might be helpful, like funds availability information. So when is my money going to be available to me once I load funds onto the card? Whether and how the monthly fee can be waived, whether there's a savings account option, and how much would it cost for a paper check bill pay or for a money order. But this is a wonderful start in the right direction, and we're very pleased and thank the CFPB for their work on this.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Steve. This one's for you. Obviously, you've been in the market for a very long time. What do you think are the benefits of increased consumer protections across the industry at this point?
Well, one of the, when you have a new product category that turns into an industry that's growing, you want the category in general, without regard to any particular one brand, to be viewed positively. You can't grow a category and create a vibrant, sustainable industry if consumers feel it's bad for them, or it gets bad articles written about it, or if regulators have concerns. So having standardized rules across the industry helps level the playing field. Much like the comment, I didn't know you were going to ask that question, but much like the comment about a football game, it just wouldn't be any fun to watch if you know, anyone could do whatever they wanted on the field. So I think hopefully what it will do is keep the industry on the up and up, especially on the issues of reg and consumer protections, which we have long been so supportive of, because it doesn't take too many consumers to lose their money or not be dealt with fairly to destroy an industry. So we like the fact that this will, I believe, will help the industry be viewed positively, in the same way that even with all the issues that traditional banks have had, people do feel safe having their money in a traditional checking account. They may not like certain aspects of it, but nobody feels that they're endangered by doing it. We need prepaid to have the same positive view by consumers.
Thanks.
Great, my next question is for Lauren. Lauren, what are the potential benefits as well as drawbacks for consumers who access credit in connection with prepaid accounts?
Like other consumers, prepaid card holders sometimes have unexpected expenses or income swings that can make it hard to make ends meet. And sometimes credit can help in those circumstances. Credit does need to be affordable, with affordable payments that don't push people into a cycle of debt. And it's not a panacea. Credit is not for everybody. Credit cannot make up for low wages, and it can't help somebody who has a month-in, month-out problem of not enough income to cover their expenses. And most people do turn to prepaid cards because they're looking for a way to control spending. 98% of the cards are truly prepaid. People turn to them because they've had trouble with credit or overdraft. And prepaid cards are offered to people who have blemished credits. They're offered without a credit check, even if you have bad credit, and that's a good thing. That's opening up, an important market to these consumers. But for many of these people, credit is not a good thing, and when offered, it needs to be offered in a safe and sustainable way. It can be tempting to take up an offer to spend more at the end of the month when you've run out of money. But what happens is then you get hit with overdraft fees, and you start the next month with a hole, and you get into that cycle that just puts you into a cycle of overdrafting every month, and fees that rack up month in, month out, that add to the cost of the card in a way that makes it harder to make ends meet and harder to meet those expenses at the end of the month. Now, the proposed rule doesn't completely ban overdraft features on prepaid cards, and that's one place where we will be urging the Bureau to go a little further. We think that companies should be free to offer separate credit products to prepaid card holders, but that when the prepaid card is empty, the transaction should just be denied, and the consumer can choose whether to skip the purchase or to pay another way. That said, the proposal does add important protections that will hopefully eliminate many of the problems that we do see with overdraft features on prepaid cards today. First of all, they have to be honest that they're actually offering credit, which of course is what overdraft is, but it's not designed that way. They'll have to tell them how much credit they have. They'll have to assess that the person actually does have the ability to repay the credit, and just being able to grab that paycheck when it comes in is not going to be enough. They'll have to have more time to repay credit, at least 21 days with payments due no more than once a month. They'll have to limit the fees in the first year
Now, there's no cap on the interest rates that could be charged, but at least the fees can't pile up in a way that makes something look deceptively cheap. Those who offer credit won't be able to automatically stick their hands into the prepaid card account to repay themselves, just like a credit card right now doesn't have the right to insist that they can repay themselves from your bank account unless you choose to do it that way. So overall, I think the rule will make credit products, when they are appropriate, more honest, transparent, and safe for prepaid card holders.
Great, thank you, Lauren. My next question is for Cecilia. Cecilia, can you talk about some of the security initiatives in the prepaid space and other attempts to reduce fraud?
Sure, happy to. So fighting fraud and protecting cardholders' data is obviously of key importance to everyone in this industry. And unfortunately, there's no silver bullet, but there are multiple layers of security and protection that we can enable in order to protect as much as we can. One key piece of consumers' protection that's already in place is zero liability coverage. So all the major networks, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, have provided those strong consumer protections for years. In addition, we're starting to see real progress on items like EMV, the chip card, tokenization, which was obviously a big part of the Apple Pay launch. And then finally, Visa has announced earlier this year that it's putting together what we're calling the prepaid clearinghouse service, very similar to what was done in credit cards back 20 years ago or so. We will be creating a repository of fraud information. Anyone can contribute to this. It's not just Visa programs, but it allows real-time monitoring for all of the issuers to decide whether or not a transaction's fraudulent, a cardholder is impersonating someone, whether or not that dispute is legitimate. And so lots of protection there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be all around a multi-layered approach.
Great, thank you.
Great. Before we move to get testimony and statements from all of you in the audience, I want to just go back to each of you and give you an opportunity to sort of wind things up. And I'll try to focus that a little bit by asking you what you anticipate seeing in the prepaid market in the coming years. What innovations are you expecting? What are the directions that you think it's going to go? And I guess we'll start down there on this end and kind of move along. So thanks, Susan.
I think what we'll probably see in prepaid, and I think you all have, I commend you for the way that you handled this, is the definition of prepaid is not just based on a card. It's based on it's a product that can be something that you use your phone with or whatever new technology we haven't thought of that's going to come our way, but these rules will cover that, and that's really important. So I think that's what we're going to see, and I think it's really great. And I think that we're going to see, I'd like to think that we will see a burgeoning market even more so than we've seen before, because now there's a level playing field, as Steve said, and there's rules of the road, and consumers can have certain expectations and know that they will be fulfilled with this product.
The future for prepaids is amazing. I mean, you can't even figure what it'll be. Today you can do that Apple Watch, Apple Pay, and amazing things already. But with technology, regulation, innovation, the potential to use technology to build a community is enormous. To be able to push information out on the smartphone. Hey guys, do you know you just used up $2.50 over the last couple of weeks? It added up to so much. Did you really budget this much for your coffee every morning? I mean, there's tremendous potential in this market if used right. Stars just have to align perfectly for it to do good in our community.
I think we're going to see a lot of growth in the payroll card market. I think this is a place, most employers still don't use them, and I think that is really going to explode, both among large and small employers in the years to come. I do think that's a place where the rules are going to need to be stronger. I think we need to do more than a little disclosure. I think we need to have really clear rules to make sure that employees know their choices up front, and the better choice for them is usually going to be direct deposit to their own account if they have one. I agree with Susan that obviously the use of mobile is increasingly important, going to have great functionality to prepaid cards, if I can use that term, for a mobile product. Here again, I think we need to remember that not every consumer has a smartphone, and even though there may be great features there, they're not going to help everybody. And even for those who do, for lower income consumers, they may be on prepaid card plans. Prepaid phone plans, data plans. Data is expensive. They may run out by the end of the month and have interruptions in access. So we have to keep those consumers in mind as we think about how these products are used, and not assume that everything is as seamless as it is for many of us.
Yeah, we are very bullish on the growth opportunities in prepaid. One thing that we've seen as a key thing that's happened here in the last 3 or 4 years, as I mentioned earlier, is this product is rapidly growing mainstream, and we expect that with things like technology that was just mentioned, this product is a lot about building financial confidence for folks. They like the product. The customer satisfaction scores are off the charts. It's a wonderful product. People feel like they're gaining control of their own finances, and when you marry that with real-time technology that allows them to better manage their money and recognize their spend rates and everything, it's a terrific opportunity for the industry. And we see it being more mainstream, and we expect to attract more people from traditional banking accounts to the product. So, very excited.
So as I mentioned in my opening comments, one of the things that gets me the most excited about prepaid is really the innovation and entrepreneurship. Steve is a great example of that. That have created this entire industry. And it's really started out with an unmet customer need and developed all around trying to solve that need. And so we see those same kind of entrepreneurs and innovators out in the market today trying to understand unmet needs, whether that's an easier way to pay your friend to split dinner, or to pay your landlord, or to deposit a check onto your, using your smartphone. I think the future is all going to be around how do we take this technology and really leverage it for people to manage their financial lives better and develop a stronger financial health.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm going to put in a little plug for banks. My sense is that prepaid accounts over time will be viewed more and more as just a bank account. You have checking accounts, you have CDs, you have savings accounts, and you have prepaid accounts. I think over time, if you fast forward, the days of a prepaid card being viewed as a neo account or kind of sort of something like a bank account, those kinds of distinctions will go away, and that they'll just be viewed as another kind of bank account. I also think that banks will become more and more important in the prepaid ecosystem, but also the payments ecosystem more broadly, because no matter what the payment device or instrument, no matter what the technology, whether it's a Google Wallet or an Apple Pay overlay or something else, the consumer will also need and demand an underlying, safe, regulated, FDIC-insured bank account, because they expect their money to be there. They expect regulators to be making sure the bank is solvent. And so all the technology in the world will not replace that core need, both in my view and in regulation and just in consumers' behavior, for that underlying bank account to be there and to be safe and sound, supporting all that new cool stuff.
Great. Well, I really want to thank all of the people on this panel. This has been a really interesting discussion, and we're going to move to the next phase now, which is going to be an opportunity to hear from people in the audience, and I'm going to turn things back over to Zixta Martinez.
Thank you, Meredith. At this time, will the guest panelists please rejoin the audience? And please join me in thanking them for their participation today. An important part of how the Bureau helps consumer finance markets work is to hear directly from consumers, from industry, from our state and local partners, and from community advocates from across the U.S. One of the ways that the Bureau gathers public feedback is through events such as these. We have held field hearings, town halls, and other public events in places such as Indianapolis, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Cleveland, Birmingham, New York City, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Durham, North Carolina, Detroit, St. Louis, Itta, Mississippi, Phoenix, Nashville, New Orleans, El Paso, Texas, and Wilmington, Delaware, among many others. At these events, we not only hear from experts in the field, we also invite the public to participate and share their views. Before I open the floor for comments, I want to remind folks that there are several other ways to communicate your observations, concerns, or complaints to the CFPB. You can file a consumer complaint with the CFPB through our website at consumerfinance.gov. Our website will walk you through the process for filing a consumer complaint. If you don't have a specific complaint but would like to share your story with us, we have a feature on our website called Tell Us Your Story, where you can tell us your story, good or bad, about your experience with consumer financial products. Your story will help inform the work that we do to protect consumers. We also have another feature called Ask CFPB, where you can get answers to over 1,000 frequently asked questions about consumer financial issues, as well as additional resources. I encourage you to visit consumerfinance.gov to learn more about the resources and tools the Bureau has developed to help consumers make the best decisions for themselves and for their families. Now it's time to hear from members of the public here today. A number of you signed up to share comments and observations about today's discussion. The open mic portion of the field hearing is also an important opportunity for the CFPB to hear about what's happening in consumer finance markets in your community. Each person who signed up to provide testimony will have 2 minutes to do so. And what we hear from you is invaluable, and we want to hear from as many of you as possible. So I encourage you to please observe the 2-minute limit so that as many folks as signed up to share their observations have the opportunity to do so. So with that, I'll call on our first public commenter, Pam Banks. Pam, someone will bring you a microphone.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for holding this important hearing, field hearing on prepaid cards. And certainly, thank you very, very much for your proposed rule on prepaid cards. From a consumer perspective, there is a lot to like with respect to your rule. We like the error resolution protection, better disclosures, and certainly we like the fraud protection. However, as you might guess, there's always a however. We are concerned about offering credit features on these prepaid cards for the obvious reasons. It traps consumers in debt, and prepaid is prepaid. And then finally, we would love to see pass-through FDIC insurance on these accounts, if possible. Having said that, we will work with you as you bring this rule, as you finalize this rule. And before we leave, or before I leave, I would like to ask permission to submit for the record our recent report on prepaid cards. The report rates 23 different cards in terms of value, convenience, safety, and transparency with respect to fees. So thank you again. Long awaited, it's here, and we'll work with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. We'd be happy to take the report for the record. Melissa Diaz.
Do you mind holding the microphone so I can grab? Good morning. My name is Melissa Diaz, and I'm Executive Director of Master Your Card Oportunidad, a community empowerment program from MasterCard. Whatever you do, please make sure prepaid cards and payroll cards remain a viable option for the 46.4% of Latino households who don't have a bank account. They use check cashers and payday lenders, losing money at every step. Prepaid card and payroll cards can help them step forward into the modern economy. Master Your Card Oportunidad is helping them make that step, and so can you. Financially underserved Latinos immediately gain greater buying power, savings, convenience, and safety when they are armed with the prepaid card and they know how to use it. Prepaid payroll card help underbanked Latinos bank on their cards, providing direct deposit, online purchasing, and bill paying, financial management tools, and significant cost savings over the expense of check cashing and purchasing money orders. That's why Master Your Card Oportunidad Latino Advisory Board worked with MasterCard to implement the 6 standards for prepaid payroll card. MasterCard payroll cards are now voluntary, provide for greater services, no or low fees, full disclosure of benefits and fees on a simple language, and education to help employees understand how to use the technology to their benefit. Please recognize prepaid cards as a powerful vehicle for financial inclusion and make certain they remain affordable for those who can least afford to be outside the financial system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Jacqueline Quinn.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Quinn from the Delaware Community Reinvestment Action Council, and I wanted to stress the importance of the uniform fees when it comes to these cards. As someone who has sat down with many clients to find out what kind of fees they were incurring, it takes some time and effort to go through the pamphlet that can come with the card. So that's one point I wanted to make. And the other thing is I wanted to stress the importance to everyone that's here of submitting complaints so that the CFPB knows what we're seeing and so that the issues can be addressed. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. Devin Lyon.
Director Cordray, distinguished members of the CFPB. My name is Devin Lyon. I'm Director of Compliance and BSA for State Department Federal Credit Union. So first, let me thank you for the job security over the last couple of years with the regulatory pace. In all seriousness, I think everyone here thinks that this is a terrific rule and long overdue. 2 things I would like to have married within the rule. One, with the request for monthly statements, make sure that is in compliance with the e-Sign Act. So if there is a paper statement requirement, that members or participants in receiving a prepaid card can opt in to receive it electronically through normal channels with existing regulation. Number 2, what we find challenging from a BSA standpoint is when members load cards through our prepaid product, Visa codes that as a purchase, not as a cash load. So from a tracking standpoint, that becomes tricky. So with looking at this regulation, maybe mirroring it with Treasury's recent rulemaking for BSA and FinCEN to make sure that all of the coding is accurate as well. So institutions that do choose to offer these products can do it in the most compliant manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Adam Rust.
Good morning. I'm Adam Rust from Reinvestment Partners. I wanted to generally compliment the CFPB for what seems like a really great rule. Looking back, I think the big issues that needed to be addressed were the question of credit versus overdraft, or credit and overdraft, and then how the disclosures would be done. And as I thought over time, the concept of a hard no on credit seemed a little bit indefensible. What I really like about this proposed rule is that credit is separated. It's still possible to get credit here, but if you do, it's completely well regulated with TILA and CARD Act compliance. And so it's really the kind of credit that it's the best kind of credit that the law will currently allow in other products. So this should be the same thing that's available for people on prepaid. With overdraft, though, we're a little more hesitant to support that. We're generally against the idea of overdraft. As much as anything, we're against overdraft on checking or on prepaid because overdraft still isn't really fixed. Even if you have an opt-in system, people are still ending up with overdrafts on certain types of transactions. That's what I want to say about credit and overdraft. With respect to the disclosure rule, I think the problems that are hard, there's a fee heterogeneity. There's user heterogeneity. What do you do about that? I really like that they've used incident fees to deal with the question of heterogeneity of fees, and with respect to cards that have, I think it's Model G, where there's a pay-as-you-go price plan, and then a standard user plan. That's been addressed. I would like to see a little more effort on functionality. What's really happening in the marketplace is that register reloads and remote deposit are a new way to add money, and that's really not on the card disclosure form. So thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you,
rule.
Mr. Russ. Shaylin Lowell.
Thank you. My name is Shaylin. I'm a consumer. I have a NetSense card. I've had it for about 8 years. A lot of the regulation that you're putting in place now, NetSpend already has. I get monthly statements. I get updates. As far as overdraft, it is something that they offer, and it's very convenient. I think limited to just once a month. You know, life happens, and no, I don't use it every month. But some months, 2 things may happen in one day, and I may need the overdraft. So limited just one is not realistic because things happen. So I think you need to take a look at that. But other than that, the suggestions you make, they're already doing. I'm very happy with my card, and I continue to use it. I have a regular checking account. I have a credit card. It's not, the reason I'm using the card is not because I can't have a bank account or I don't use a credit card. It's a choice. It's very convenient, and it helps me, you know, monitor everything in a more convenient way than a traditional bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. Chris Harris.
Thank you. Well, I don't think I could have said it better than our customer here. We too are in the process of interpreting the rule, having gotten it this morning. So my comments will be brief. You know, we spent the morning, instead of digging through the rule, meeting with customers. I'm always amazed when we are out in the field and we invite customers, how willing people are to come to something like this. People take the time off work to come visit with us, to talk about their life and their passion for this product. I think it speaks volumes about how important this decision is. And so over the coming weeks, we'll go through the rule. And what I'm left with in these meetings is how important it is that we get it right. These are real life stories and real life consumers, and that's what guides us. And my hope is through the comment period that the Bureau will take that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, and indeed, we are in agreement with you. Thank you, everyone in the audience who took time from your busy day to join this discussion. We appreciate it greatly. Joe Valenti.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Valenti. I'm with the Center for American Progress in Washington, D.C. Thank you for convening the hearing and for putting out what looks like a very strong rule. I do admit I did not have a chance to read all of the details on the train coming up this morning. But it looks to be very strong in terms of expanding transparency and protecting consumers. I'm not sure how the credit features are going to be viewed, but we have time in the process to sort that out. It was almost 2 years ago that our organization had an op-ed in American Banker suggesting the prepaid cards be regulated as bank accounts, and this is definitely a major step in that direction. It's also an important step given changes in technology. When we have products on mobile phones, whether they are prepaid or bank accounts, mobile products need to be banking products first, and I think this rule moves us in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti. Ingrid Shepard.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ingrid Shepard, and I'm the Executive Director of the One Less Foundation. We are based in Philadelphia. Many of the individuals my organization currently works with, they use prepaid products and cards as their sole means of participation in financial transactions. The new rules, as laid out today, are a step in the right direction. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues who spoke before me with regards to concerns of the credit products and their attachments to the prepaid cards, as there are many consumers who are already in a vulnerable state who do not currently understand those risks, and they need to be made aware of those risks. These products do serve a valuable purpose to those consumers who are currently outside of the mainstream and traditional banking community. I think it should be the goal of the CFPB that the most vulnerable population is not taken advantage of, and that they are a targeted population who is made aware of all of the risks involved in the products that may be their sole means and options of participating in day-to-day life in the U.S.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Nicole Fogarty.
Hi, good morning. My name's Nicola Fogarty. I'm the Director of Compliance for the New Jersey Credit Union League. I just want to thank the CFPB and certainly the panel for their time and attention to this important regulation. And while we certainly support regulation in the matter of prepaid accounts, certainly in the area of these types of products and services, we just want to ensure that the CFPB and all agencies involved stay very involved with the credit union industry and the leagues that support credit union industries, because certainly as those who are people serving people, our members often are some of those that are in the low wealth areas and certainly are a preponderance of users of these prepaid cards. So we want to make sure that we pay attention to the regulations. We also keep the regulatory compliance burdens to a minimum on behalf of the credit unions that serve these members, and certainly on behalf of the members that we keep those fees in check. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fogarty. Darlene Battle.
Good afternoon, and thank you again for having this here forum so all of us can, as community organization, can voice our feeling, talk to you guys about the people that we serve. I am the Executive Director of Delaware Alliance for Community Advancements. I serve pretty much over 2,000 people a year. I help people file their taxes for free. I refuse to, I know prepaid card is here to stay, but I refuse to introduce it to my customers until we get some clear instructions that they will be able to understand. And you mentioned that the employers should educate their employees, but to the organization like myself that provides services to low and moderate income families, we need to have some clear instructions and where we can post it all over so they can understand how much fees are involved. And now we service young people who are about to go to college, first generation. They too would get trapped with the prepaid card and be left with all these fees. And we want to be able to provide the young people with some clear instructions. How much fees are involved? How many, is it fees every transaction? We need to know that so we can educate the people that we serve on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Battle. And thank you to all that provided thoughtful comments. Thank you to the audience, to the panelists, and to all those watching via live stream at consumerfinance.gov. Thank you to Delaware Technical and Community College for hosting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That concludes the CFPB's field hearing in Wilmington, Delaware. Have a terrific afternoon.